Calling from a 419 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's me.
Yeah, it is you. Who's this?
Oh, great. This is Emmett from Cleveland. How are you doing?
Emmett, what's on your mind?
I'm calling about the proposed changes to the Clean Water Act. I don't know if you guys covered this, but in the last few days there's been a lot of movement from the federal government about changing what's known as the Waters of the United States rule.
Yeah. Let me just go over this with people. It is a 2015 rule that the Obama administration promulgated. The EPA was deemed to have authority to do so. They do have the authority. I don't even think that the Trump White House is arguing that. And what it was is basically saying, and the Trump administration, to my understanding, is keeping part of it, which is you cannot use dangerous pesticides and insecticides in areas where they could run off into streams and tributaries that go into drinking supplies. I mean, because we want to keep about.
So that's.
About.
That's not technically.
What? Well, wait a second.
I'm sorry.
We want to keep about 2/3 of our drinking supply safe. What the Trump administration is proposing to do and will do is say that on streams that are like seasonal or don't directly go into one of these tributaries, that they're basically saying you get a pass because I don't know. I guess insecticides, when they're sitting in a stream bed, they magically disappear, and then when the water comes, they don't wash into somewhere. I mean, I guess that's the thinking, but that's not.
No, that's.
Go ahead.
That's exactly correct. I mean, what they've done is they stripped away protections from ephemeral streams and wetlands, which is most of the waters in the United States. And I mean, one of the things that it's going to do is it's going to increase the amount of flooding in this country. It's going to increase the amount of subsurface runoff, and they're really just it's basically class politics because I mean these laws, and also the thing that really angers me is that every person has been covering this calling it the 2015 Obama era clean water rules, but these rules were expanded upon by every single president since Nixon, and
right.
They're taking it back to the Nixon era. I mean, it's really a failure of reporting in the way that this is being covered.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't realize they were rolling it back that far.
This will be back to the original 1973, interpretation of the Clean Water Rule, literally only covering navigable waters, their tributaries that flow into navigable waters, and physically adjacent wetlands.
Wow.
Now, some estimates are 60 to 90% of the water resources in the United States do not fall into that category. And just a few numbers for you. When the program came out in 1972, it is estimated that of the 200 million acres of wetlands in the United States, we had been down below half of that, less than 100 million acres. And now since the program and the no net loss tenants instituted by George H.W., we've reclaimed 50 million acres of that wetland. And I mean, this change is going to see that going in the other direction.
Yeah. I mean, what's the best resource you have for this? Because the reporting I've read has not characterized it in that way.
Well, so I work in the field. I'm the general manager of a company which does wetland consulting. So I might be speaking from a place of personal import as well, but
I mean, the facts are the facts, right? I mean,
no, the facts are the facts, and I just watched the EPA do a press conference on this thing. I mean, basically, there's nothing official for the next 24 hours. The Intercept had a really good piece on it where they quoted the head of the Cuyahoga River Reclamation project.
Right. Now, we should say the Cuyahoga River actually came up in the context of that debate that I did with Stefan Molyneux. But the Clean Water Act came out of essentially the Cuyahoga River catching on fire.
Literally
catching on fire. And
the joke was that the Cuyahoga River used to be whatever color Sherwin-Williams was making that day.
Right. And now, of course, the libertarian philosophy is, well, people take care of it because if they own it, unless it's more valuable just as a dumping ground for them. And then they will take care of it insofar as it still becomes something for them to dump in. And that's what the point of this is, right? That those wetlands, those riverbeds that are seasonal, the value is to be able to dump off their crap, essentially. It's to externalize the cost. I mean, this is nearly
exactly. It's
every...
class politics because...
Well, all of it is. I mean, all of it is to the
Right.
extent that, like, what we have is companies, corporations who are looking to externalize the costs of their profit onto the rest of society. And so we have to pay for
Exactly.
it. We pay for it in the form of cancer. We pay for it in the form of cleaning water. We pay for it in the form of all sorts of diseases and allergies that people get and the treatments that are involved in that. We're subsidizing the profit making of all of these corporations, and you can find these questions of externalities when it comes into the matter of fossil fuels, but it comes in anything that where, particularly in the environmental realm, because it's so hard to track with the naked eye, essentially. It's to see the runoffs and the costs that are basically shifted to other people. But this is a classic case of privatize the profits, socialize the costs, and walk away and pretend it's not happening.
Well, I would just like to beseech everybody to contact their representatives and let them know that this is a terrible move for the government to make, and also that this really is not a partisan issue. Ronald Reagan said that the purpose of the Clean Water Act is to have all streams in America swimmable and fishable by 1985. And then George H.W. expanded upon that, saying that the program should account for zero net loss of water resources within the United States. So, I mean, if those two people are in this paragon of conservatism, then they this should not be considered a partisan issue. This should not be a left versus right thing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the call, man. What's your name again?
Emmett.
Emmett, I appreciate the call, Emmett.